Hey guys! So, what would happen to the billions of farm animals on this planet if every single human on this planet went vegan right now, today? Would they just be left to starve? Would they be released into the wild, into the forests? Would we euthanize them? And what kind of implications does this have for veganism? So I answered the question of extinction in this video. You can check that out here. And just to be clear, this is only an issue if literally every person goes vegan today, right? This is not at all a realistic scenario. I talked about this in this response to that BBC video, if the world went vegan. So you deciding to go vegan, or me, or anyone else, this is not going to cause the dilemma, the stuff I'm talking about in this video, nor is hundreds of millions of people going vegan every year. A moderate and sustained drop in demand results in a drop in breeding these animals, and there are still omnivores around to eat the ones that won't be replaced. Ultimately, we see fewer animals being bred and born into suffering. Some carnists will claim that a drop in demand means that the meat that you didn't eat, it goes to waste, at least until the economy can respond by decreasing supply. But that's not necessarily true. In reality, nobody has to eat more meat, and no meat has to go to waste. At the retail level, in a case where supply temporarily exceeds demand, the price drops and bargain shoppers absorb the extra. It's basically a buffer stock, but instead of selling the stored commodity back, they use it and buy less during times the price is high. A robust free market with a minority of savvy consumers can absorb considerable fluctuations without generating extra waste. Farmers can also respond to price fluctuations by deciding when to send animals to finishing and slaughter, and when it makes more sense to keep them on pasture for longer to wait for prices to recover. Live animals don't expire quickly like fresh meat does. Meat processors who make shelf-stable meats like jerky or canned meat products can also choose to buy low to produce stock they can sell off over time. The point here is that there's flexibility in multiple points along the market. And a drop in demand doesn't necessarily result in any waste as long as some demand is left. It just means lost profits for producers and animal agriculture, which is obviously something that we want to happen. Less money motivates people to leave the industry. On a global scale, this can happen gradually as individuals go vegan one by one, or even millions by millions. There's no reason to think that there would be waste or that there would be huge populations of lingering animals to feed. While the whole world going vegan overnight is absolutely unrealistic, should we worry about the world going vegan faster than people expect? Probably not. Farmed animals' lifespans are pretty short. So the question that we might ask is how quickly? How quickly can the world go vegan without this burden of billions of animals being left over, right? The answer depends on the animals. Broiler chickens are sent to slaughter after only a couple of months, very fast turnaround from egg to carcass, meaning people could stop eating them more quickly. Pigs are next, sent to slaughter in about 6 months. For eggs and egg-laying hens, it's 1 to 2 years. For cows, about 2 years, with the milk and smaller amount of beef from dairy cows lasting a little bit longer. It could happen in 4 years if demand shifted from chicken and pork to beef and then fizzled out. Once demand started dropping quickly and it became apparent that this was happening, nobody would be investing in animal agriculture and very few people would continue breeding. Most farms would be concerned with selling off existing stock and getting out of the market. There wouldn't be any chickens or pigs left, and very likely no beef cows. Worst case, if demand for dairy held strong toward the end, but demand for beef had already dropped to almost nothing, we might have 100 million dairy cows left over. That's actually very manageable compared to the 1.5 billion cows in the world today. It would likely be very easy to turn these cows out to pasture for retirement to live out their natural lives. Alternatively, and admittedly a much less happy ending, they might end up as cat food for the hundreds of millions of domestic cats, feeding them for the rest of their lives. Neither eventuality is a big problem, and it's also important to note that retired cows are much lighter burdens on the environment than active cows. Making milk requires a lot of calories, a lot of resources. But what if the world really did go vegan all at once? What if there just weren't any meat eaters, not even one, to absorb the supply? No matter how unrealistic this is, some people base their ethical decisions on a rule like, act as you want everybody to act. So essentially, if we as individuals go vegan, then we should want everybody to go vegan and go vegan right now. And if that wouldn't be a good thing, then we, as individuals, shouldn't go vegan. I addressed this silly thing, excuse, reason, whatever you want to call it, in my response to the BBC that I mentioned earlier. There are also some really good comments on that video that address this. This kind of reasoning is a good rule of thumb in certain situations, but ignoring reality instead of focusing on the actual effect of what you do, it doesn't make a viable ethical system. But let's ignore how silly and impractical this all is and answer the question that I asked at the beginning of this video. What would happen to the billions of farm animals alive today if the entire human race went vegan? Cows wouldn't be that large of a burden on our economy since they could be turned out to pasture. And because cows already spend parts of their lives on pastures before being sent to feedlots, this wouldn't be a very dramatic change compared to business as usual. While these fully grown retired cows probably wouldn't consume as many calories and produce as much methane as rapidly growing or pregnant and lactating cows, they would still continue to be a tremendous environmental burden for decades. We'd also need to keep people employed, rotating the cows to different areas and preventing them from wandering onto roads, and we would probably need to supplement some of their feed. This would still be bad, but it would certainly be better than the current situation because a lot of farmland and crops would be freed up for human use and for regrowth of forests to trap carbon. It would also mean at least some reduction in environmental harm from the cows themselves. So based on cows, it still makes sense to go vegan even if you use the everybody at once rule. Pigs and chickens wouldn't be as harmful to the environment, but they'd be a larger burden to feed and care for. The pigs, for the most part, can go feral pretty easily and could probably be released into forests and have their food supplemented with human waste, from spoiled food to literal feces. Yeah, pig toilets are a thing. In this case, the benefit of not eating pigs means we have more options for how to feed them. Pigs, as omnivores, can even eat human corpses for the greenest burial ever. Due to the huge variety of foods pigs can eat, they are probably the greenest farmed animal there are, but only if they are being fed garbage. Of course, developed countries don't do this today because humans aren't really fond of eating pigs grown on human feces or corpses, and there may be health problems there beyond the already notorious issues with bacon. Working to separate all of that waste and deliver it to 2 billion pigs would be a monumental task, one that would result in environmental devastation if we failed at it, with the pigs eating through everything in sight and hunting wildlife to extinction. And to be clear, they would need pretty much all of our waste. But we do already devote a considerable amount of resources to waste management, from sewage processing to landfills. It would probably be manageable without having to continue to farm extra food to feed all of those pigs, and it would clear up a lot of land for human use and for regrowing forests as carbon sinks. Those forests could probably be used in place of old growth to give the pigs somewhere to live and to prevent damage to existing ecosystems from releasing them. Although the kind of fencing needed to contain them would probably be on the scale of Trump's border wall in terms of cost. It could be done though, and would probably be worth it in terms of environmental benefit. So based on both cows and pigs, it still makes sense to go vegan, even if you apply the everybody at once rule. So on to chickens. They would likely be turned out into fields to eat insects and weeds in some form of integrative pest management, doing what they love to do. This would likely involve the most human labor with respect to herding them around and getting them where the bugs are, and to discourage crop-damaging activities with fences to protect the plants we want, particularly when sprouting. Despite the marginal utility, the economic toll of trying to deal with and keep safe nearly 20 billion chickens would likely be quite high. Unlike cows and pigs, chickens would not at all be safe from predators on their own. Anything from wildcats to domestic cats, coyotes, foxes, raccoons will eat chickens. Even the pigs that we'd let free would eat the chickens. And there's no viable fence that could keep out all of the small and very adept climbers among those potential predators. So how many chickens can one person deal with? Maybe 200 if we pushed it. It would take hours to set up fences to contain the chickens and load and unload a truck every day and herd the chickens around to clean the fields. Maybe we could recruit some border collies to help. But even still, it would be a huge task requiring employing some 100 million people. And even then, the chickens might still need supplemental feed. Would it be better than the current system? Well, we would save a lot of feed, but chickens are more efficient than other farmed animals, and most of that saved feed, like soy, would go to making tofu to replace the chicken. So on balance, it would probably only free up a little bit of farmland for humans and as forests. So a little bit of benefit there, but not as dramatic. And the cost to employ 1% of the world's population as chicken herders on farms might also be prohibitive. We're talking about very labor-intensive pest management. Whether you think it's worth it might in part depend on how much you value reducing the use of herbicides and pesticides. There doesn't seem to be that much economic value in that, or more farmers would already be doing it. Farmers might also be able to pay for the service, but given the need of the chickens to eat and how very many of them there would be, the price a chicken herder could demand would probably be much less than a living wage. It's an industry that would need a lot of subsidization. For chickens, the case isn't that clear, and it mostly just comes down to the raw numbers. Even neutering them would be a monumental task due to the huge population, the limited number of veterinarians, and the internal genitalia. If that didn't work, the only other alternative would seem to be releasing them into the wild and wishing them the best. Chickens are good at foraging, and adequately dispersed in good environments, they could forage enough insects and vegetation to survive without us feeding them. Due to their small size and inexperience, a significant number might die from predation, but from an ethical standpoint, it may be worth it. It certainly seems better than the current state of brief confinement and then slaughter. So all that said, it still makes sense to go vegan regardless of how you stand on these issues, even if you still want to apply the everybody at once rule. Worst case, you reduce your animal product consumption and go vegan gradually. Even if every single person on the planet did that right now, just gradually started going vegan, all of the issues I've talked about would be avoided. Make a plan to cut out most chicken over the course of a couple months, stop eating pork gradually over 6 months, stop eating eggs over 2 years, and stop eating beef and dairy over the next 3 years. With gradual reduction, you could be vegan in 3 years, and if everybody did the same, there would be no problem at all. You can have your silly ethical rule and go vegan too. You can have your rule and eat it too. I don't know what I was going with there. You get it. Thanks so much, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video. Comments and questions down below. If you want to subscribe, that's super cool. If you want to support the channel, you can do so at patreon.com/unnaturalvegan. This is the last video I believe I have of Sniff. That's not true. I might have some other video with Baby that obviously I won't be sharing, but this is the last video that you guys will see. He's gone, Sniff is gone. I had to I had to put him down last week, so that's really sad. He was 20.5 years, 20 years and 6 months, about a little bit over that. Yeah, so he was part of my life for a very long time, and it's very, very sad. And that's it. So enjoy this video. I don't know how long I'll keep using it for this, because it's still just kind of making me a little bit sad, and shit, I can't talk about this obviously, so I'm just gonna stop.